Because we just think, oh, that's just how people are. Like, doesn't it ever seem like odd to any of us that maybe not yet, but hopefully in the next few years, it'll seem odd to us that we have politicians who are lying to us. We know they're lying to us. They know that we know that they're lying to us, and yet they continue to lie to us. And we continue to vote for them. Why? Because our liar is different from that liar over there. You've got a choice of these two liars, and which letter is next to their name determines whether or not we excuse their lies. My goodness, it's so strange that we have the courage to do destructive things, but we don't have the courage to do beautiful things, to do true things. You know, it's so easy for us to criticize. It's so hard to say that we love. It's so easy for us to put things down. It's so hard for us to compliment.
I think a lot of people lack the courage to do either.
Yeah, because most good and evil is done by people who don't make up their mind to be or do good or evil. They just do. I was thinking we have this choice. We can either say, well, the rest of the world's going to live that way, so I have to do that to survive. Really? You have to live by lies to survive. You ever looked at the universe? The universe does not care about your opinion of it. The universe is itself truth. The world around you is itself truth. And if you're on the wrong side of truth, the universe will catch up with you eventually. All of us, all of us pay for what we do. Some sooner, some later, whether it's good or whether it's bad. We all pay for what we do. The question is going to be, of course, what are you going to pay for? And you aren't going to want to make things better until you love what presently is. To love your life, to love the people around you, to love humanity, to love what the world could be. Even if largely for what the world is. It just isn't true that the world's all terrible. It just isn't true that life is only suffering. It's that last part. That's not true. That's not true. That is so important, man. It sounds so simple. Do you have to lie to get through life? No, but people think they do. Why? Because they believe something that's not true. We live by lies. It's this great essay that I had on the tap to teach this year, but we just didn't get to it. And I've been trying to teach it for the last 3 or 4 years. I just never get to it. It's called Live Not by Lies by a guy named Alexander Solzhenitsyn. We've had a quote from, actually. And he talks about, in other writings, about living in the Soviet Union at the time under communism. And there's this great line where he says, they lied to us. We know they're lying to us. They know that we know that they're lying to us, and yet they continue to lie to us. Now, why is it that they were being lied to? Because the state knew that it was wrong. And the state thought that the only way they could get the people to go along with them is to lie to them, to get them to believe absurdities. Now, why did the people allow it? Because they were apathetic. They were indifferent. They were this term called nihilistic, which is nihilism is this leveling tendency, which says everything is the same. There's no good, there's no bad, there's no evil, everything is just a leveling tendency. Everything is the same. And as soon as you start believing that there's no such thing as truth, then you stop fighting for truth. As soon as you stop believing that there's such a thing as truth, lies don't bother you nearly as much. Because we just think, oh, that's just how people are. Like, doesn't it ever seem like odd to any of us that maybe not yet, but hopefully in the next few years, it'll seem odd to us that we have politicians who are lying to us. We know they're lying to us. They know that we know that they're lying to us, and yet they continue to lie to us. And we continue to vote for them. Why? Because our liar is different from that liar over there. You've got a choice of these two liars, and which letter is next to their name determines whether or not we excuse their lies. And that just seems like a really strange thing, because now you have to recognize that we're voting for lies. And we're doing the complete opposite of what Solzhenitsyn argues. He says, live not by lies. Instead, we live by lies. And does it seem odd to anybody that if we're living by these lies, that people feel alienated, they feel like they don't belong, they feel like there's no meaning and there's no purpose in life, there's nothing to strive for, there's nothing heroic to accomplish, that there's nothing good and beautiful and pure and true in the world? And if that's our view of the world, what's our view of humanity? Oh, I wish an asteroid would just come and wipe us out. And if you believe that, and I mean, if you really believe that, what's the difference between you and a mass shooter? Except that you don't have a firearm and they do. What's that?
Let's not assume.
Assume what? That you don't have a firearm? Should I ask you what's the difference between you and them except for they have the courage to do it?
Yeah.
Maybe. But think about that. If you have the courage to do that, my goodness, it's so strange that we have the courage to do destructive things, but we don't have the courage to do beautiful things, to do true things. You know, it's so easy for us to criticize. It's so hard to say that we love. It's so easy for us to put things down. It's so hard for us to compliment.
I think a lot of people lack the courage to do either.
Yeah, because most good and evil is done by people who don't make up their mind to be or do good or evil. They just do. Yeah. And that's why it's so important to get to these underlying unconscious motivations that we have. We oftentimes just think, that's just how I am. I'm a Pisces, can't help it. But man, if you really think that, then you don't have any control over your own life. And if you don't have any control and agency over your own life, it's so difficult to take ownership of it. And if you don't take ownership of it, it's difficult to appreciate it and to love it. And I say this, and I know that it's mostly deaf ears, man, but my God, when we look at the state of the world, have I said anything controversial yet? Have I said anything that's not true? And then we have a choice. We can either look at it and go, I was thinking about this on the way in today for some reason. I was thinking we have this choice. We can either say, well, the rest of the world's going to live that way, so I have to do that to survive. Really? You have to live by lies to survive. You ever looked at the universe? The universe does not care about your opinion of it. The universe is itself truth. The world around you is itself truth. And if you're on the wrong side of truth, the universe will catch up with you eventually. All of us, all of us pay for what we do. Some sooner, some later, whether it's good or whether it's bad. We all pay for what we do. The question is going to be, of course, what are you going to pay for? And I wrote this up on the board, and I've been saying it all year. Life is suffering, and hopefully you're tired of hearing it by now. I really hope you are, because the very next question after that should always be, now what? You know, we make these radical statements like, you know, people are dishonest. Yeah. Now what? Oh, dude, but there's so much evil in the world. That's true. Now what? You know, just making statements is not an argument. Making statements is not an action plan. We make statements so that we understand the state of how things are so that we can move forward in some way. Yeah, life is suffering, but here's the question. What are you going to do with it? You got to suffer anyway. Why do I tell you? Why do I tell you this all the time? So people think I'm so dark and so you know, negative when I tell you this. I'm telling you this for a very optimistic reason. Because once you realize what it is, now you can do something about it. If we go through life and just say, oh no, this is fine. I think things are going to be okay. Meanwhile, you know, there's wolves all around you and the building's burning down. You can't make things better until you recognize what they are. And you aren't going to want to make things better until you love what presently is. To love your life, to love the people around you, to love humanity, to love what the world could be. Even if largely for what the world is. So it becomes this question, now what? Do we just sit there and become angry and jaded and full of contempt because life is suffering and we, you know, scratch our chins or we grab our elbows and just stand here and go, man, there's no point in doing anything? Or do we say, life is suffering, I've got to go through it anyway, I might as well get something positive out of it. The things that you go through in life, you got to go through them anyway. You might as well get something positive out of it. As you guys are getting towards the end of your time here, think about this. Like in this class, or any of your classes you've been in this year, any of your year-long classes, you've been here for 36 weeks. 36 weeks, usually 5 hours a week, give or take a few hours. Multiply 5 by 36. I ask you to do it because I can't. But when you do, and you figure out how many hours that is, ask yourself, did I really just spend 200 whatever it is hours and got nothing out of it? Did I do that for 2 classes, 3 classes, 4 classes? That would be 800 hours of nothingness that I got out of all of it. I listened to some songs, I watched some TikToks. Which ones? Which ones? How'd they change your life? How'd they make you better? They made the time just go. And that's so much of what we do. We just let life go. You know, we drive from here to there and we just go into autopilot. We don't think about the cars that are passing us by. We don't look at the scenery. We just sit there and go, I'll be there in an hour and a half according to GPS. Now we go into autopilot. We don't think, we don't look, we don't process. We just, all of a sudden we like come out of a stupor and we're like, I'm here. You know, it doesn't have to be a 2-hour ride. It could be the 5-minute drive to school every morning. It could be the time that you're in the shower. It could be the time that you're eating. There's so much of this life that we just let slip down the drain because it's in between time. And yet we could make so much more out of it. And then again, when you go to your classes now and ask that question, what did we get out of it? Did we get something useful? If you're in your chemistry class, if you didn't get any chemistry out of it, but did you get something else out of it that's actually useful? I don't just mean like entertainment. I don't mean like distraction from the time. But did we get something out of it? Because you had to go through it anyway. And those are the 3 choices. You get something, you become better. You don't get anything out of it. You become jaded, angry, bitter, full of contempt, and you become part of the problem. Or you become numb and nihilistic. And if you look at those odds, man, the odds are 2/3 against you. There are 2 bad options and 1 good option. And I tell you life is suffering because I want you to see it for what it is so that you can make it what I follow up by saying, which is that it is so much more than just that. But I don't want you to be surprised because there are serpents in the garden. You're going to walk out of here. And if we've been telling you for all these years, everything is great, everything is wonderful, you're going to get bitten by a serpent. Similarly, if we've been telling you for 4 years, or I guess 12 years, everything is terrible, everything is horrible, the world's a cesspool, what are we creating? A bunch of people who are going to go out there and continue in that process because, you know, why bother? Or worse yet, yeah, it is terrible, so I should do the exact same thing to be terrible. But you see, the worst part of all of it is that it just isn't true that the world's all terrible. It just isn't true that life is only suffering. And that's what we're getting at here. It just isn't true. You know, something happens to you, something that's going to be that I don't know, like maybe you go through a breakup and you might think like, God, this is terrible. Maybe not. It's interesting. You can try this experiment. Go talk to older people you know who have gone through some kind of a significant life change, like a divorce, they got laid off, they got cancer, and they beat it. You know, some kind of a major life thing. And then ask them, were you better off before or after the event? Man, I've literally asked that question to a couple hundred people, like one handful maybe. I can count them on one hand, people who said, it was better before. But overwhelmingly, things were better afterwards because it took them to a different place. And it's a place that they realized they never could have gotten to if it wasn't for that. You know? Now, when they're going through the divorce, through the cancer, through the unemployment, it seems like it's the end of the world. But there only is one end of the world. You probably won't be here for it. There will be an end of your world, I suppose. But the question is, how quietly do you go into that? Or how readily do you go into that? It's the end of the world, it's the end of the world. How many end of the worlds do a lot of people have before they die? And the cowards have a lot of them. People who are afraid have a lot of them. Or, sorry, scratch that. I didn't mean that. People who are afraid and don't go forward anyway have a lot of that. Because there's nothing wrong with being afraid. Everyone gets afraid, and your fears are good. to tell you about what's important to you. But do you let your fears stop you from going forward? Soldiers who go into battle, they're all afraid, man. But do you go forward anyway? People, when you talk to like UFC fighters, these are guys who've been fighting their whole lives, they'll tell you before they go into a fight, almost all of them will tell you, I'm a little nervous, a little scared. You're one of the greatest in the world, one of the greatest who've ever lived. Yeah, nervous, makes me scared, but they go forward anyway. Dancers who go onto a stage, they're a little bit nervous before they go out there, but they go forward anyway. People who speak the truth, probably a little bit nervous before they do it, but they do it anyway. And that's because you get yourself in all of those cases in alignment with the truth, with the world the way that it really is. And that's a big part of it, to accept the world the way that it really is, to accept the way that you are, and then to operate within those things to become better. Because you got to go through those things anyway. You've got to live through your skin anyway. You've got to live through your personality anyway. You might as well get something better out of it. Yeah, but people have made me the way I am. No, you've accepted the way that you are. And that's one of those really hard truths. If you're bitter, and you're angry, and you're resentful, and you're contemptuous, are there things that push you in that direction? Probably. Are there people who push you in that direction? Probably. But it's your job to push back, to establish who you are. And if you are one of those people, then what are you complaining about? They're just being what you are. And if you realize that people are the way they are for reasons, man, because as soon as you say, oh, the world made me this way, then you have to recognize that the people who are evil and corrupt, they were made that way too. Why do they continue in that? Because they don't know any better. Why? Because they've been lied to, they've been deceived, they've been manipulated. And this is why seeking the truth and finding the truth is so challenging. And this is why I tell you not to do philosophy. Because if you seek the truth and you find it, it puts you at odds with the world. Because you will not accept living by lies. In yourself or in others, you'll love people. You can't help but love people. Because you realize that people are the way they are because of circumstances. But man, that can be so hard too. Because it's difficult to love people who are liars, who are manipulators, who are full of contempt, who are angry and bitter and resentful. But I'll tell you, it's harder to love yourself if you're that way. And so yeah, life is suffering. But find something to make it worthwhile. Hopefully to make yourself better. And then as soon as you make yourself better, you make the people around you better. Not by intervening in their lives, but just by being in their lives. And then you make the world better. Not because you're out in the streets marching, holding placards, telling the rest of the world how to live, but because you're showing the world how to live. And the world is better because you're in it. And I mean that, by the way. And this is absolutely true. The world is better with all of you in it. And so make yourself better. Make the world around you better. And make the people around you better. And I don't know if there's anything that's going to be more noble or difficult than that. So, questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Yeah, other than that, I've really got nothing to say about this. Yeah.